All right, it's time to progress to the next level of the offseason for the New York Jets. Throughout this week, we've talked about moves the Jets could make that could create some cap space, but after they get that bag of moolah, what the hell are they going to use it on? We're going to talk through which top Jets free agents they will target. And feel free to get involved in the comments section and let us know who you want the Jets to spend their hard earned dough on. Let's roll, baby.
It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Esden Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to the program here. This is a video podcast, also available wherever you get your audio only. If you guys prefer that medium as well, simply search for Boy Green Daily. It's time to figure out which top Jets free agents they will go after. There's a lot of dudes out there and money to be had and made. We'll see who they're supposed to target. But first, let's bring in the similarly handsome devil, also with glasses, who likes to talk about the Jets. It is Ty Gashtar Butler of ESPN 98.7. Good morning, Ty.
Yo, man, you say good morning, but honestly, I'm watching these games yesterday and I'm thinking, before the season,
yeah,
Jets were supposed to be here, man. And they were supposed to be here. So it's fun, but it's that bittersweetness of, NFL season's coming to an end, and also you are conditioned as a fan to look at these games through the lens of your fandom. I'm watching a number 2 overall pick in his rookie season win a playoff game with the rookie head coach, defensive coordinator from San Francisco, with the rookie offensive coordinator. So
From the 49ers, yeah.
The 49ers. So those parallels sounds a little similar to that team that you root for, that's on your hat right there.
Yeah, weird.
And then you watch, of course, the Browns, and I know they got blown out, and Flacco, that fairy tale came to a halt. But the fact that Stefanski had, this team at 11-5 in the playoffs, had a chance to win that division, just speaks to how excellent he was as a coach. And you didn't hear, well, no, we can't sign this guy because he doesn't fit our system. It was bring him in. We'll adjust our system accordingly. And, they were primed for takeoff. So it's hard to watch yesterday and not think of this team that for 13 straight years couldn't get into the playoffs.
Yeah, no additional games. Yeah, we're in January going, oh, free agents. What's
Yeah, this is where we are, right? We're at free agency, mock
right.
drafts, and man. But it's not unfamiliar territory. It feels like we're here every single year.
That's unfortunately the truth. The thing I will bring up, here's a good little nugget. We'll see if the phone loads, but I think I already know it off the top of my head, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins losing last night. Dolphins fans chirp a lot, and the only thing I would like to point out is their last playoff win was in the year 2000. That was the beginning of the century. For those who may not know the time element of it, during that same amount of time, the Jets won 6 playoff games. That's 2 trips to the AFC Championship game. There's 4, and then a couple more sprinkled in the early 2000s. So Dolphins, know your place, baby. All the way down. I thought they were going to put up a more competitive fight in Arrowhead, but yikes.
If you are a Dolphins fan, man, it's a rough morning for you because you had the division locked up. It felt like you did. And then you started to lose some games. Buffalo got hot at the end of the season, win 5 straight games, and essentially back-to-back playoff games because Week 18 was a playoff game, Paul. And the last
Mhm.
line, obviously, was a
Yeah.
playoff
Yeah.
game. You saw this team look soft, and it starts with their quarterback, who they're going to have to figure out how much they're going to pay him. If you're Miami, how much do you pay a quarterback who yesterday we saw you didn't trust to throw the football? Because at one point, I tweeted this out. Mahomes had attempted, I believe it was 34 passes
I saw
to
that.
Tua's
Yeah.
13. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, like, coaching, McDaniels just doesn't trust Tua right now. So how much are you going to pay this guy who clearly in the biggest game of the season, he didn't trust to throw? Can't play in
Over
sub.
50 million a year. That's
Yes.
that's what I would do. Unbiased, that's what I may give him 100 million, honestly, per year. Yeah. That's what
As
I'd
a
be
Jet
willing to
fan,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't trust him, and you're being sarcastic because you're a Jet fan, but you can't trust him in big games. You can't trust him in sub 40-degree weather. And
No.
in the biggest game of the season, you couldn't trust him to throw the ball. Yo, at the end of the first half, they couldn't even attempt a Hail Mary, and they're about like the 40-yard line because he doesn't have a strong arm. So I'll be curious to see what they do during those negotiations. But like you, man, I hope they lock him into a long-term contract. So to his credit, he stayed healthy this year, which is the biggest question.
Yeah,
But
sure.
those other things, man, those other questions have not been answered.
In all seriousness, I think they do sign him long term to a crazy deal, and here's why. While he may not be insert top level quarterback, whoever you want, Mahomes or whatever, but when you're a team, he's your version of that. So, like the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, right? Like he's their guy, and he will be there as forever as long as they can keep him. The Dolphins don't have Patrick Mahomes, but they have Tua, and what's door B? They don't have a door beast. They're like, well, he's our guy. We have no choice but to pay him because he's our
No.
best what we have, so we got to rally around it.
So I look at it differently. So Kyle Shanahan, Mike Mc was McDaniel on that I don't think McDaniel was on that same staff with Shanahan, but we saw
He
Kyle
was
Shanahan. Was he
in
on that
San
staff
Fran. You're talking about?
in 20?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yes.
Okay, so similar cheat, right? So we
Hmm.
saw Shanahan pivot, and Shanahan's the best, maybe the best offensive mind in football. These offensive guys understand that they have such an obsession with that side of the ball. They're not going to allow the quarterback to bring them down. We saw Shanahan, Jimmy G, not get him to a Super Bowl, not getting him. Traded up for Trey Lance, and they traded a boatload of first round picks. Nope,
Yeah,
get him out of
3.
here. We go to Brock
Mhm.
Purdy. So I think when you're that savvy offensively, and when your mind is that brilliant, you figure out quickly, yeah, this is not my guy, and you're not settling. Whereas a defensive coordinator can talk himself into, we'll win running the football, playing great defense. I don't think that's going to happen in Miami.
Interesting. Wow. Well, yeah, you're right. It could be. Well, we'll see. I mean, Mike McDaniel did FaceTime him on his private jet, saying, brother, we're going to be able to do this thing together. We'll see how much that actually means, I guess, in all reality. But anywho, we'll also obviously the last time we talked here on the show, just people in general. Now we got 2 playoff games every day because of the Buffalo Pittsburgh Storm. So that gets
Yeah,
kicked to Monday. So not safety and all that. That's good. But me personally, I'm like, cool, 2 playoff games every day for the next couple days here. All right, not too
yeah.
shabby. I'll take it. All right.
Even though
Buffalo, what a
yesterday,
draw though. They get freaking
yeah,
Pittsburgh.
I mean, they they got fortunate there because you get Pittsburgh, and the next week you host Kansas City, who
Hmm.
you beat earlier in the year. I'm still not counting the Chiefs out just because
Of
Patrick
course. How
Mahomes has
can you?
become
Right.
that guy that you just don't bet against. But I mean, they beat Kansas City earlier in the year. They're at home. It does set up an interesting thing. We got to root for the Bills, though, Paul. We
What?
have to root for the Bills in the
I'm sorry.
Steelers game tomorrow. We have to.
Oh, I know why. I know why. Ty Butler, you sneaky bastard. Your blueprints all over the table in front of you because if you guys missed it yesterday, for everyone listening, Mike Florio at halftime, it had to have been the early game, right? So Browns Texans at halftime said Mike Tomlin after the Steelers game or after their season's over, which a lot of people think it's going to be over pretty quickly, is going to take a step back and evaluate basically his football future with his family. And when I say football future, I'm not talking about, should I retire? No, 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 no.
He's not
whether or
retiring.
not he should come to the Steelers and say, "Hey, let's keep doing this thing," or let's mutually part ways, as we've seen a few places do. So there is a. As soon as I heard that kind of lingo, that kind of language, it sure seemed like maybe Mike Tomlin's just done with the Steelers, and then he can reach the open market. And boy, this may be. I
Oh
think I
my
tweeted it
God,
out. This may be the biggest crop of talent
of
that we've
coaches
ever
we've ever
seen.
seen ever.
Yeah, ever with
Harbaugh,
Tomlin and
Belichick,
Harbaugh and all these guys out there.
Harbaugh, Belichick, Tomlin, Pete Carroll still out there,
Vrabel
who's won the
is another
Super
one. Yeah.
Bowl. Vrabel, who to a lesser degree, but like still is a very good head coach. And it's a tough spot for the Jets, which is why Woody Johnson, putting that out there with 3 weeks left to go in the season, kind of was a bad idea. You don't want to go back on your word and say, yeah, we were bringing these guys all back, but now we've decided that we can't do that, even though you finished the season beating the Patriots. Like, it almost would have helped if they got blown out by New England, because then you can use the excuse of, nah, that was just inexcusable. We can't have that happen. But ultimately, we know this comes down to whether Rodgers approves of it or not. But we did see Aaron go on Pat McAfee show. He was, overcome with praise for Bill Belichick. But the other
So
thing
would you
too
give
is,
them any chance to pivot? Okay,
no,
obviously they've said since 3 weeks left that, Salah's back, everybody's back. But with all this talent, a lot of Jet fans have been saying on social media, well, yeah, okay, my plan was this, but shoot, this just happened. But call it audible at the line of scrimmage. This is happening.
So I have Rex on. I was on DPH on Rothenberg. You actually heard the interview. Thank you for retweeting that. And we
Flex on,
asked
baby.
him, is that a possibility? And he said he does not believe so. That the Jets are not going to change course. But the flip side, so you brought up the Tomlin part of it, which obviously I hadn't been thinking of. But the reason why I had mentioned got to root for Buffalo to win this game.
Yeah.
Is McDermott might be on the hot seat. Like, you keep hearing these rumors. There's a surprise coaching vacancy. Like, Philly, obviously, you wonder if Sirianni's coaching for his job tomorrow in that game against the Bucs. Dallas, we know for sure if McCarthy gets bounced to today or maybe even next week, because they'll have another home playoff game.
Correct.
You wonder if Dallas, if that becomes an opening. Buffalo's another one, man. Because, so during the season, and what got lost in this winning streak for Buffalo was they fired their offensive coordinator, Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs, that noise hasn't lessened. This could be the final game we see for Diggs there. I think Gabe Davis might be available too. And then McDermott, man, if they lose this game tomorrow, you wonder if that usurps the winning streak, because now you remove the snowstorm element of it. And I actually text my buddy who does TV this about this, and I'm saying, yo, is there a chance McDermott gets fired? He's like, well, I don't think so. And then I responded with, well, the snowstorm becomes an excuse. Now you move it to Monday. You figure the weather's not going to be, as much of a factor as it would have been today. If that job becomes available, why wouldn't Belichick want it? Clearly, there's some sour grapes there with Kraft, right?
Sure,
sticking it to the Patriots in the same division. It's a Super Bowl ready roster. You've got the quarterback. He's got defense, the pieces. Milano's going to be back next season. White's going to be back. So
interesting. That's not where I thought you were going, but now I see exactly what you're talking about. Obviously, if I think so, because again, the Buffalo's the biggest favorite of this entire weekend of playoff picks with their point spread against this Steelers team that's playing a backup quarterback or no TJ Watt, everything else. If you lose at home to this Pittsburgh team, probably under any circumstances, let alone if you lose by some embarrassing figure of 10 points or some multiple scores. Yeah, you're right. They could can him, and then we just talked about this wonderful availability of all these wonderful coaches, and they look and go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and bring them in. That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah.
To root for the Bills, so disgusting.
So go Bills.
Okay, all right. All right, let me sprinkle this in. This is what I fear. So behind us, we could see all these receivers: Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, T. Higgins, all these wonderful names. And this is where Jet fans have been kind of circling the waters for a while because of the wide receiver need, clearly for the Jets. But what I worry about are any of these dudes hitting the open market. That's the thing that scares me because the franchise tag. Maybe Tampa gets Mike Evans there because the other two guys to our left and right are younger, but maybe Mike Evans makes it. Are any of the, let me just, I guess, ask bluntly, are any of these big free agent fish at wide receiver going to make it to the open market so the Jets have a chance to make a pitch?
Oh, it's an interesting point. Mike Evans, you remember before the season, they couldn't agree on a contract extension, and he said he's not negotiating during the season. So he
Yeah, you
gave
seem
them
pretty frisky about it. Yeah,
a hard
not very
deadline.
happy with that.
And you wonder, because in that game, week 18 against the Panthers, he wasn't really involved in. I think what they scored 9 points. I think it was an ugly
Yeah,
game. They
gross.
win. You
Yeah.
get to the playoffs. I actually think Bowles could get fired too if they lose this
Ooh.
game, which would be. I mean, that would signal to me that they just never really wanted him. They were looking for a reason to fire him because how does he win the division back-to-back years and still get canned?
Hmm.
But Evans, to me, that sounds more viable. Because like,
I agree. Yeah.
what's the reason if you're Tampa that your franchise tag him? It's not like with Indy, at least you have a young quarterback coming back next year. You want to have that, that synergy. You want to be able to give him some weapons. The Bengals, maybe you franchise tag T. Higgins just because you didn't really
Hmm.
get a chance to have that quote unquote last dance with Burrow, Chase, and T. So I think
Hmm.
that's interesting. Like those are the two candidates for franchise tag. But Evans, I think, can be had, man. I tweeted this at you this
Hmm.
week. Like as much as you love the Devontae Adams marriage, I just don't feel
Sure.
like it's worth. I mean, let me not phrase it worth-wise. I just don't think that it's in the best interest of a team that has this amount of needs to even now, without your second round pick, mortgage more of your assets to go trade for this guy. The fit is perfect. Played with Rodgers. I actually don't think if Antonio Pierce is brought back, they're going to end up trading him because Devontae has been pretty vocal about keeping him. And then you saw Max Crosby yesterday say if they don't bring him back, he wants to get traded. So
That's a
I don't think
choice.
Devontae. Yeah, right.
Bring him or I'm gone. What?
You don't
What?
really see
Like,
that
okay,
happen in
so
the NFL.
if you bring him back, it's like you're kowtowing to Crosby. If you don't bring him back, now it's like you call the bluff. Someone's like, yeah, you're looking. My friends are holding you back. All right, friends, move over. Oh,
Yeah, right.
yikes! Really wasn't prepared for a follow up here. Like that's interesting. That's interesting. So
But
yeah,
it's
again,
funny,
I
right?
get it.
So
Devontae
you
has a
so
lot of ties that make sense, but at the end of the day, the Jets have limited assets. So to utilize those limited assets, in theory, on something they could get, even if it's a lesser, again, depending on how everyone views all these wide receivers. No, I hear you. I'm picking up what you're putting
so
down there.
yeah, if you're max for 8, you mean to tell me you would only play for Antonio Pierce, and if Belichick somehow comes, you're like that's where we draw the line. Like that
That's
doesn't
what I'm
make any
saying.
sense.
Come on.
But
That,
yeah,
that
I think Mike Evans is probably the most realistic. Though
I agree.
I gotta say, the guy that I really want, man,
Yeah, tell me,
is
please.
it T Higgins? I think it's T Higgins. I think T Higgins
24.
is the guy
Yeah.
because I don't know, like general managers shouldn't think like this. So I'll preface it by saying this is strictly the fan in me talking, not the talk show
Yeah.
host, just the fan.
Hmm.
Mike Evans comes. Maybe he's better than T Higgins. He's probably better than T Higgins, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, I need to still be the number one receiver, which is another reason why the Devontae thing to me is a little brings me a little trepidation. I still want Garrett Wilson to be that guy. Like I think he could be a number one receiver.
Oh, so you're
And
saying things could get awkward at the office. You're the
yeah,
manager, and then they bring in a co-manager. Like, whoa, whoa, thought I was
and I
manager.
don't
What?
think Garrett's that guy. From
Okay.
Garrett's on our station and he's team first. Like I understand that, but just me, the Jet
Hmm.
fan.
I see
Like
you.
I don't want any clashing. Devontae comes and now Rogers is force feeding him the way he did in Green Bay. Like naturally, the guy who just was rookie offensive rookie of the year and had an excellent season for the Jets. in back-to-back years is looking at, this situation going, interesting.
And the Rodgers year was stolen from him, so think about that, right? So he
Yeah.
was supposed to play with Rodgers with no Devontae Adams. He was supposed to play with him by himself. So for that year to be taken away, and he goes through all the trudging of quarterbacks, he finally gets the offseason. Wow, we can't really wait to play with Aaron Rodgers this year and be wide receiver one. Breaking news: the New York Jets have traded for Devontae Adams. They now have a wide receiver one. He goes like, what the? I think in some sense he'll be like, oh, awesome. Now some more attention over there. But I think you're right. When he's standing on the other side of the field doing a couple of these, as Devontae's like, throw it up. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe something
So look, I think Mike Evans probably is number one. He's older though, so let's
He is
T. Higgins
30,
might be the
31.
guy.
That's where he's hovering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we
That's a
don't
couple of these
need
guys.
we
Devontae's
we've
same
already
age.
we've already seen these old guys come here. They get hurt. Like let's go with some guys who are younger. And
I love
T.
the youth.
Higgins. Yeah.
The only thing that kind of gets me is he's wildly inconsistent. Like he'll throw him a slant pass, hits the ground. You're like, what the hell?
But then-
and then
then
back
you-
of the end zone, one-handed catch. I'm like,
He's toe tapping. Yep. You
doesn't make
nailed
any
it, man.
sense.
You
That
nailed
just
it.
does.
He's toe tapping back of the end zone, one-handed catch. It's amazing.
That is bizarre. I honestly, Ty, do you have an answer for that? Like he drops like I don't know if it's a focus drop. He starts looking upfield or something, but he has had all kinds of catches. Again, he's a wonderful young player. He's going to get paid a lot of money. But I've just seen it when I'm watching a game. Oh wow, there's drop it, and he just goes like geez, a quarterback. That's on me, man. That's on me. He's like, oh, okay, and then back of the end zone, right? The acrobatic. I'm like, Jesus, like You'd think that the other stuff was just automatic, and then hey, occasionally I'll throw you in a little splash or something. But can you
It's
explain
frustrating.
the wild inconsistency?
Yeah, I don't know. I think some guys are just, it requires so much attention and like laser focus to make those awesome catches. They're just dialed in to where like the layups can at times feel so easy that you lose focus. You take your eye off the ball. You're
Yeah.
thinking about where you're running. You get more time to think on those layups than you do on those amazing end zone catches. That's the only explanation I have for it.
Yeah, so T. Higgins, a very interesting player, and we'll see. Ty, before we wrap up, everyone's been talking about wide receiver, and I have the overall NFL free agent list. So just it's kind of averaging this by what their salary was last year. So the big names are up here. Is there any other position? I'm sure offensive line is on the list, but it's just there's just not a lot of dudes out here outside of like Tyron Smith of the Dallas Cowboys, which I'll tweet out
Injury
something
prone.
after the show about this, but like
Injury prone.
yeah, that's what I mean. And he's well, although I guess he's basically like a decade younger than Dwayne Brown for Pete's sake. So I guess not as old. Although my it's after you've been with an old woman. Now all of a sudden my perception of age is all of a sudden different now. I thought what I thought was old before no longer
Yeah.
seems old anymore. So I guess that's a little different. But yeah, the injuries concern you. Is there another position out there in the free agent world that you'd want to splash a little money on? Something of that nature, or a player of that
Well,
needs?
yeah, I mean, offensive line and receiver to me are your number one and number two areas, primary targets coming into the offseason. Jonah Williams is a name that he might be a top candidate available after
Interesting.
a pretty nice season in Cincinnati.
Mhm.
So Jonah Williams steps out. Who is it? Kevin Zeitler.
Yes, that's the interior offensive lineman.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he could be a name that enters the equation. You know what I'm concerned about?
What's that, sir?
What's going to happen with Bryce Huff?
Ah, boy. I'm going
Does
to
he
be
get
honest.
tagged?
So you guys just had Rich Samini on your show because, again, everyone's joining Ty Butler all over the place. My mom's going to be on your show next, for Pete's sake. ESPN 98.7. In my head, my plan was this. I was like, of course, you got to tag Bryce Huff no matter what, just so you control the narrative. So he does not hit the open market. And then you can trade him. You can sign him long term. You can negotiate a trade ahead of time. So, like, it's January 14th right now. The legal tampering period and new league year is until March. At February, There's going to be a convention center for general managers all hanging out at bars and the combine for a bunch of time. So if you find out, like Bryce Huff really wants to test the open market, maybe like he's like, I am testing that market, baby. And you realize that there's no way that you could sign him to a long-term deal before that. And if you're the Jets, you're like, well, I don't want to risk it of losing him. And he's going to be pissed off playing on the tag. And the tag is $23 million. So that's going to hold us up to it. If I'm Joe Douglas, I'm shooting the shit at the bar in Indianapolis saying, hey, who would be interested in Bryce Huff in theory? He's not, but if he was, hypothetically speaking, who would be interested? You get a couple of teams say, hey, I'd trade you a second and shoot right now. And he's like, interesting. Then fast forward a couple weeks, you could tag him just for the sake you have to tag him or trade him because he's technically not under contract and you move him. But the fact of the matter is, Rich Cimini of ESPN, your brother in arms, said he would be flabbergasted. I'm making up a different word. He said surprised, but it sounds sexier when I add a little embellishment to the story. He says he would be flabbergasted. He would be, thrown out of his chair if Bryce Huff was tagged. And man, Richmond has covered this team for over 30 years. When he says stuff like that, it's not just wild opinion like he's a radio show host. Like it is informed speculation. That's how I look at it when Rich Cimini talks and says stuff like this, outside of him saying, this is complete BS. Let me just throw this against the wall. So when he says he'd be surprised if they tag him and then talks about the money and the moves, and then he just says, well, they want to try to aggressively sign him to a long-term deal before. But if he reaches the open market, I think he's gone. He's a fish out in the ocean. You're never going to see him again because the money's going to get crazy with other teams. And that scares the crap out of me, quite frankly, that the Jets in a win-now year could lose a key young player for nothing except a comp pick in 2025, and that does me diddly. Sorry, that doesn't really rev my engine laying in bed at night to think about that. So, I was super confident they're at least tagging him, but now after hearing more from guys like Rich Cimini, Ty, I'm concerned, man. I think we're losing.
That's very concerning, especially when you hear in his press conference, he said he's not taking a hometown discount. I mean, he kept it a buck.
I don't blame the man, but
he was honest. Yeah, he had a career season, which was a nice Joe Douglas find. But and then like you have dreams and envision what this defense could look like next year with Jermaine and Huff on those edges. Quinnen and Quincy coming off of amazing seasons. Quincy and Sauce having Pro Bowl seasons. So losing a big piece of that defense, man, it is going to be brutal. So I do hope that they can figure out a way to keep him. I don't feel like it's going to happen because I always felt going into this process he was so damn good. That there's going to be a team out there that between 17 and 20? Is that like
that's
the
number I believe. I had former NFL general manager on Randy Mueller, and that's basically the number he said, exactly the number you just said, between 17 and 20, which is basically a market increase on what Carl Lawson got. He got 3 years, 15 per 45 total.
How'd that Carl
30.
Lawson deal work out? Was that a good one?
Not good. Yeah, 66% of that contract was guaranteed. And basically, Carl Lawson is Bryce Huff, but Bryce Huff at least has had a double-digit sack season. He's an analytics guy that he's like tops and pressure rate and this, and plus he has the sack. So I imagine that's exactly what he's going to get. And Bryce, here's the thing though, the Jets effed up. Bryce Huff has been okay. I just want to preface this. You don't have to cry him a river here. But as an undrafted free agent, he played for 3 years on $3 million. So he's making $1 million a year. Again, he's not in the streets begging for loose change, but he's making $1 million a year while he's watching everybody else make money. I believe if the Jets would have approached him, they said, "Hey, you want $5 million a year? 5 times what you're making on a per year basis," and he's in the middle of his career. He's like, wow, $5 million a year or whatever the number is. It would have been a great deal for Bryce to get a bag of money. And then also on the other side, it would have been good for the Jets to get him at this crazy market discount. But they kept saying, nah, it's fine. It's fine. Just keep playing on that cheap money. And then this past year, restricted free agent tender, no one bid. So he played for $4.3 million, a massive, again, that's I'm saying the perception thing, a massive pay raise to Bryce. I was like, oh, $4 million, this is phenomenal. Jets say, hey, we'll double it, $8 million. Like that's what they could have done. They could have prevented us from getting to this point. Now, Bryce Huff sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He's driving his car. His His eyebrows are picking up. He's like, oh, I'm almost to the end of this tunnel, baby. What's on the other side? Only God knows. Here we go. Driving along, toot in the car. Boy, he has in his eyes. He's not taking a hometown discount. And again, what could the Jets offer? Where, to me, if I'm sitting in Bryce Huff shoes now. Jets approach me at the table. I'm like, I tell them, I really want to hit the open market. And they say, hey, what number do we have to get to where you don't want to hit the open market? I'm like, well, start talking. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You'd have to so overpay for a number. And I'm like, okay, I'm not willing to hit the open market. Sure. Let's sign for your bajillion dollars a year. And that's not going to happen. The Jets are not going to go to that level. So that's where I struggle, man.
And it's also from his standpoint a poor negotiating tactic. Like this is the first time in his career because clearly he blossomed. He outplayed his contract. He's undrafted,
Right.
so now he's in a position of power where he has all the leverage, and he wants 32 teams bidding for his services. So why eliminate that type of power you have by just telling the Jets, this is the number. So I think he's going to test free agency, obviously, and get the most money. But that's to me, that's one of the biggest concerns. You have the offensive line. What are you doing there? You have how do you upgrade your depth at wide receiver? Maybe you bring in another running back to help Bryce Hall, who clearly has got his legs under him toward the end of the season. And Bryce Huff, like that's the one guy because we kept talking about defensively. You're not losing a lot of pieces. Al Wood's coming back next year. Ashton Davis, so. I think. Ashton Davis looks like he could be a part of this future. Tony Adams had a solid season. So you got some legitimate weapons. Bryce Huff is the one, man, that it keeps you up at night.
I think here's what the Jets are going to say. This is just going to piss off Jet fans. It'll probably piss off you, Ty, that, we're all crying in the corner. Bryce Huff, man. We're singing Swan. He's
Will
not
McDonald.
dead,
Oh, my God.
You already know where I'm going.
Yeah, Will
That's what the
McDonald,
Jets say. They're like, hey, buddy. Slap you. You're at the end of the bar, just, crying your sorrows. So like, hey, we've got Will McDonald. We're going to be fine. And then it pisses you off twice. One, because, you're trying to shove that down our throat. And number two, they're like, hey, remember, we used a first-round pick on that. And the Jets fan that's at the end of the bar says, I know you did. I know.
You know what I was thinking yesterday, too, about that pick?
Yeah, what's that?
Because we could go to, JSN, of course, who was the obvious pick. Everyone wanted JSN. We could be unfair and say Puka Nacua. It's unfair. He's a 5th-round pick.
That would have been fun, yeah.
How about this, though? You see Rashee Rice last night?
Ooh.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
Incredible. What was he, like the 6th receiver or 10th receiver take?
Yeah, they said it somewhere on the broadcast. There's something like 9th or 10th receiver taken somewhere in there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He would have been nice to have, too. Yeah, that would have been a nice guy to have.
Here's the concerning part.
The 4th coldest game ever. He's just balling out.
I think Zach Rosenblatt said this, and I've heard Rich Cimini say it in the past as well, but the Jets didn't have a single first-round grade on any of the receivers that went. That includes Zay Flowers, that includes JSN, Jordan Addison, who had a great run earlier in the year and then kind of fizzled out late. They didn't have a single first-round grade on any of those guys. So either you look at the Jets scouting staff like, yikes, or I don't know how else you look at that. But,
there's no excuse for that. That's especially when you trade down and you lose 2 spots, because I can understand you being all in on Broderick Jones, but you had to imagine there was a chance all the linemen you had your eyes on were going to be gone. So what's your contingency plan? That felt like a panic move, and it also felt like Robert Saleh's in that room as a defensive coordinator. Like, yeah, we need some more depth on that side of the ball. So
why did we even swap though? I'm going to just be honest. Again, Aaron Rodgers is great, and I get he got injured. You can't account for that. So I'm still cool with the trade, but it just felt extra. You gave him a second, which was in the high 40s. You gave him a second that could become a first the next year, and then they said, I imagine this for the Packers said, for shits and giggles, give us a first round pick swap, and they're like, all right, let's do it. Like if the Jets would have said no, not happening, kick rock, pal, would they have said, all right, deal's off the table? All right, fine. It's
because who were they bidding against? Who were they bidding
exactly.
against?
So if they would have said, no, first round pick swap, you want a first round pick swap? Yeah, kiss my ass, pal. No, not happening. And then they went, all right, fine, you bastards. All right, let's do it. And then who knows what would have happened? Because, there's conflicting beliefs on the Broderick Jones thing. But that's the thing I just don't understand. That's just the thing I don't understand. It just felt like the Jets went over the top for zero reason whatsoever. The Packers would have folded like a used lawn chair if you told them no. Kick rocks.
And now the Packers are in the playoff.
That they are. With Jordan Love, who looks like another Hall of Famer in a row. Great. Good for the Packers. Excellent. Great. Wow. All right. Well, Ty, I'm looking forward to this. With your schedule, we'll be doing this every Sunday all the way through the Super Bowl, so we'll get some NFL talk in on a week-to-week
Yes,
basis.
sir.
We'll
This is like a
vicariously live
little,
through the teams that actually go to the playoffs. So
yeah, this is like a little
that's
warm up for me because I got my Sunday show on
yes,
ESPN New York with Brandon Jacobs at
nice.
11. So this is a nice pregame, and this actually helped with some of the show prep because I
Ooh,
didn't even I had been thinking about the Tomlin aspect, of course, but you mentioned him going to Buffalo. That's fun. The
mm,
Woody Johnson, him coming on 3 weeks ago. I said this to you today. That's something I
yeah.
can bring up too. Like, was that a mistake? The vote of confidence with 3 weeks left to go in the season. So yeah, looking
Because
forward to
then
it,
you
man.
see what happens. Because he would have been, if he did or didn't give the vote of confidence, it just would have given us a little bit more content. Like, wow, Woody Johnson hasn't given a vote of confidence yet. But at the end of the year, he could have let everything settle and just fully evaluated. The Bears took days to figure out: are we keeping Ewan Flores? Are we
Which
not?
is a
I don't know.
terrible
And then,
job. We didn't even
yeah,
talk about that. What an
yeah.
awful decision by Chicago.
What a terrible decision. Because here's the thing. Okay, so now you're going to F yourself just like the Jaguars did with Trevor Lawrence. So they end up picking Urban Meyer, right? And that was a terrible choice. First over, he sucks. You get rid of him. And now Trevor Lawrence is hanging in the wings as you switch another coach. This with the Bears, you should have ripped the Band-Aid off because now with Eberflus, you're going, yeah, let's give him another shot. It's terrible. You're like, shoot, we got to switch again. And then you're just messing everything up. Terrible.
And think
Terrible.
about how attractive that job becomes where you've got two picks in the top nine.
Yeah.
You've got you've got two picks in the top nine, a roster that's pretty
Yeah.
decent, and it's a
Yeah.
division. Yeah, I mean, it's starting to you feel different about it now than you did at the end of last season because Jordan Love might be good.
Right. And the
Kirk
Lions. Yeah.
Cousins might be coming back, and then the Lions, of course, are the best team. But that becomes a much more attractive job if you tell the new head coach you got two picks in the top nine.
Plus the tradable asset of Justin Fields to decide what you're
Yeah,
going to do with.
yeah.
So
Plus, can you get a second or even a third for Justin Fields? Maybe you can get a second for him.
maybe, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, would Atlanta be interested in that? So, like, that's just a terrible job by their management. I thought that
God
was just
awful.
an awful decision.
God awful. What time is your show, Ty? Give us all the deets. Come on, let's plug it, baby.
11 a.m. this morning, 98.7 ESPN. We're gonna be talking football. Football. Got 90
Okay.
minutes today, a little shortened show. I think we got
Okay.
the Knicks. Do we have no? We have the Knicks tomorrow. We got the Rangers coming up on our
Oh,
airwaves
I
today.
see.
The Rangers are playing at 1 o'clock at home, hosting Washington. So it's an abbreviated show from 11 to 12:30. But we'll be there. We'll be having some fun previewing these games today and talking Jets, of course.
All right. Looking forward to it. Love that backfield. Ty Butler, Brennan Jacobs. If I had a fantasy team, I'd draft that right now, baby. I friggin' love it. That's what I'm talking about. Excellent, Ty. And we'll see you next Sunday. And every Sunday, like I said, through the Super Bowl. Looking forward to it, brother.
Yes, sir, man. Peace and love.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you tomorrow morning for our Mock Draft Monday show. To Ty's point, no playoff football, but Mock Draft Monday. Looking forward to it, I guess.